It's the Security Weekly News, and I'm Doug White, and it's episode 371. It is Friday, the 22nd of March, 2024. We've got Robots Gone Wild, UDP, GoFetch, Domain Controllers, Pwn2Own, Verner Vinge, Reddit, Aaran Leyland, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices or reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
All right, we're back with the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. We've got yet another new secret location this week on the Security Weekly News. It might be the Edgewater Inn in Seattle, and there might be a mud shark in that closet over there, but I'm not saying anything. It's just a rumor. Yeah. All right. The CISPA, Helmholtz Center for Information Security in Germany, it sounds so much better in German, has revealed details of a new denial of service attack vector that impacts, well, UDP-based application protocol. And that translates into 300,000 or more internet-facing systems that are vulnerable to this. Now, have you ever been doing an audit or a pen test? I call them audits because that's what we always call them, but they're called pen tests. But I mean, did you ever notice that they had all these ports blocked on their firewall? I remember looking at the firewall and going, wow, they blocked everything. Good work, everyone. But then I noticed that, UDP, and I was like, are you just wide open on UDP? You realize there's 65,536 ports there too, right? And they were like, oh, yeah, that's just fine. We just let UDP in. That nobody targets UDP. It's just NTP and DNS and stuff like that. Yeah. It was always a problem, right? I mean, we've seen UDP floods since the dawn of the internet, but this new revelation says that it's more than that. Now, this one is called a denial of service loop attack, and it's self-perpetuating, and it targets application messaging in UDP. So basically what it does is it sets up two different network services that are running UDP so that they keep saying hello and trying to send traffic to each other. So they send hello, and then remember, UDP is a connectionless protocol, so it doesn't have any reply packets per se. But what happens is one sees the other one responds, and it just starts bouncing. And it creates a kind of classic UDP flood or a classic type of flood. And apparently it can spread to other devices, so they see these hello packets as well. And then So, I mean, did you just check your date book to see if it was maybe 2003 or something? I mean, like old school stuff. But the research says once a trigger is injected and the loop is set in motion, even the attackers are unable to stop the attack. So this is like those old school floods on hubs where you basically ended up having to unplug everything in order to, get it back. It's nasty. Now, the attack affects NTP, DNS, TFTP. Is anybody still running TFTP? Even Cisco finally took that out of their materials. Echo, ChargeGen, QOTD, and probably other types of attacks. Sorry, my cat's doing something. So this could mean there's a lot of hosts out there that are vulnerable to this attack beyond the ones they initially decided were vulnerable. Now, the attack has been confirmed by CERT to impact products from Broadcom, Honeywell, Microsoft, and MikroTik. Notifications to the vendors went out in December 2023 from CERT, and some of them have patched it, some of them have not. They said there was no evidence that this attack had yet been used in the wild, but for our sake, I think we should probably start looking into this again and realizing that NTP can be a threat. I mean, lots of us open NTP ports, port 123 on UDP or DNS ports on UDP, and allow those. So be sure you narrow those transactions down to just the IPs you want. Don't just allow all UDP traffic to come in. GoFetch is a new attack method that was disclosed by researchers this week. It's called a micro-architectural side channel attack. It's a mouthful. And it can allow the extraction of secret keys from constant time cryptographic implementations. Sound familiar? It does to me. Now, the attack would require local access to the targeted system, which very much limits the exposure of it. But that doesn't mean it's not something you need to worry about. I mean, basically, the researchers found a way to use some special inputs in crypto, which would allow them to infer the secret keys by guessing at them a bit at a time by monitoring the behavior of the memory-dependent prefetcher, or the MDP. Now, this starts to sound a lot like those old there was an old argument that I had with a professor about, being able to read bits with an electron microscope on an old hard drive platter. And Craig Wright, infamous Craig Wright, actually bought an electron microscope and disproved that this was actually any better than just flipping a coin. But here, it actually works. Now, this is, that read ahead kind of, speculative stuff that we've seen in many, many different attacks on CPUs. But the research demonstrates an end-to-end key extraction attack against OpenSSL, Diffie-Hellman Key Exchange, GoRSA, and others. Now, this is based on another attack vector like this called augury, which was presented first in 2022. Now, the attacks primarily work against Apple M1 processors, but they said they might also work on M2 and M3, which would extend this attack into a lot of different platforms. They did also say that there was an Intel processor that uses the memory-dependent prefetcher, but said it was more robust against these attacks. And robust is one of those terms that you see a lot in academic papers, which means better, I guess. But this was all reported to Apple back in December of 2023. They also notified all the crypto vendors that seem to be subject to this. Apple said they were investigating this, but as with any kind of CPU-based attack, fixing it's not that simple, as we know from Spectre Meltdown and on and on and on, that you don't just say, here's a patch to your CPU. It may require an architecture revision, which means the CPU goes in the trash, and that's not something that's easy to do. The article said that a proof of concept is on the way, which makes this more dire. And there is a link in the article to a paper that they published. That's the academic paper about it. They also had a cool video on there so you can actually see them doing the attack and seeing it succeed. So if you're interested in those kinds of attacks or you're concerned about them, I don't think this is something you need to be running out and yanking the processors out of your Apple devices yet. But it's definitely something you might want to put on your tickler file, as they say, to keep up with what's going on. Is your DC crashing and you don't know why? Well, come on down to Mr. Mike's Discount Server Warehouse, where you can drive away in a brand new Linux-powered device and leave those pesky domain controllers behind forever. Or not. Probably not a big option for a lot of you. Well, Microsoft confirmed that there is a memory leak that was introduced this month in the Windows Server security updates that they put out. So that would have been the Patch Tuesday updates for March. They said this is the culprit in a widespread issue that's causing domain controllers to crash. The affected domain controllers are freezing, and then they restart unexpectedly. I don't think it's a blue screen of death. It's just a no screen of death, where your whole everything locks up, and then after a little bit, it just reboots. And you don't really want that with your domain controllers. I mean, basically what they said was this is due to a local security authority subsystem process memory leak, a classic. So we had a lot of classics this week. But if they said you can watch your logs and see when memory is continually increasing, and then, at some point you'll have to make a call to reboot. Ugh. Also not something you want to hear about your domain controller. This has been affecting pretty much everything from Server 2012 release 2, 2016, 2018, and 2022. on the Microsoft Server series. Now, it does not affect Windows home desktop versions or any of that kind of stuff, but it is affecting the domain controllers. And if you're using domain controllers to manage all that, pretty much everybody's going to drop out to local mode, which is not cool either. The recommendation until a fix is released is that you would either need to, and this recommendation was just crazy to me, but I mean, I guess it would work. You need to monitor the memory state and reboot as needed. Wow, that sounds like old school memory leak dealings. Or better yet, you can uninstall the updates. Now, I don't like that one either. There's a specific instruction in the article if you need the command line instructions to remove these updates. They are in the article. I'm not going to read them to you because if you're driving and you're trying to take notes, that's not a good idea. So basically, you end up removing security patches to increase availability. That's never going to be a great trade-off. But at the same time, it may be the only trade-off there is. There's likely going to be a patch soon. Microsoft patches pretty fast. So I would guess they're going to fix this pretty quick. But until then, enjoy. Pwn2Own 2024 in Vancouver, Canada has ended. And the researchers, nobody sent me again. Somebody out there, you should want me to come and represent you at Pwn2Own. Come on. But especially in Vancouver, really? I'll bring my skis. But the researchers managed to collect $1,132,500 after they found 29 zero days and some bug collision problems. A Tesla Model 3 was awarded on the very first day of Pwn2Own to Team Synactive. The biggest winner, though, was Manfred Paul, who took home $202,500. Synactive was second, Seung-Hoon Lee was third, and Theory was fourth, to name a few. I mean, obviously, there were other people that got lesser prizes. Manfred Paul hacked Apple Safari, Google Chrome, and Microsoft Edge web browsers. So probably earned that money. Synactive won the Tesla, though, and they also won $200,000 prize for hacking the Tesla ECU with vehicle CAN bus control in under 30 seconds using an integer overflow exploit. Wow. So this is a case where movies and TV kind of had it right? The people, they sit down, chug a Red Bull and go, I'm in. It's like 30 seconds. Wow. I mean, great work, though. I mean, it's a good article to check out. All the stuff from Pwn2Own is always wonderful and provides so much insight into everything and gives you, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, gives you a chance to hack things in a legal way so you don't go to prison. Very cool. So be sure and check out Pwn2Own 2025. Get started. Ransomware gangs are on a hiring spree. I love the evil empire industries now. They're on a hiring spree to try and get affiliates who are looking for jobs after two of the biggest extortion companies, Lockbit and Alpha5 Black Cat, which I'm just going to call Black Cat because I don't know how to say the first part. But Lockbit and Black Cat got taken down by the authorities temporarily. Now, major strikes from international law enforcement have done a number on the ransomware industry, as and particularly the ransomware as a service industry in recent months. Black Cat got hit in December by law enforcement, but they were back in business a few weeks later and conducted the Change Healthcare attack. So they took them down. They came back almost immediately. They're probably planning for this now. And then shortly after the Change Healthcare attack, they disappeared with a claim, I love this, that they had been shut down by the authorities. But that seems to be a scam since the authorities all went, wait, what? No, we shut you down in December, but we weren't there. I don't think so. And why the scam? Apparently, after the Change Healthcare ransom got paid, the Black Cat leaders said, we could slink out the back door with all the cash and not pay the affiliates and blame it on the authorities. Ooh, pirates doing piratey things. Say it ain't so. But anyway, Lockbit got shut down last month temporarily by a large-scale international law enforcement operation. Both of these gangs had large numbers of affiliate groups who use their malware. And basically the way this works is you become an affiliate, then they pay you a percentage, or they all have different arrangements, but they pay you as an affiliate for things that you set up and execute. And of course, that means you get a share of the loot. Unless, of course, Dread Pirate Robert skips out the back with the whole bag of doubloons while you're reading the news about law enforcement attacking the people you work for. Apparently, 3 emerging ransomware as a service groups then, Medusa, Ransom Hub, and Cloak, are trying to recruit all the affiliates that have, jumped ship. Now, Medusa, listen to this. Medusa was offering a sliding payout scale with the affiliates getting more and more money for larger and larger ransoms. So the bigger the strike, the more your cut. But it wasn't just a bigger cut. The bigger the strike, the bigger your percentage of the strike. So they were really encouraging people to go for the top dollars. Medusa was also offering them 24 support, access to an admin team, a media ad team, ransomware negotiators, probably a foot rub, a company card, and an expense account, And pretty soon it'll be Flappy Boy comes home from a hard day in the ransomware mines, hangs the hat on the wall hook, and drinks a well-deserved martini with a fine Pall Mall cigarette before retiring for the evening. And you're back in 1963. Yummy. I didn't mention that Flappy Boy probably has a heart attack shortly after that, like many people who sat down, had a martini and a cigarette after they ate a steak. And how the 60s were great. Come on. Where's Don Draper when you need him? All right. Verner Vinge died. You may not know who Verner Vinge is, actually, but about 5 years before William Gibson, you probably do know who William Gibson is. William Gibson wrote Neuromancer, but about 5 years before that, Verner Vinge wrote a novella, which is a short novel, and was widely credited with the very first time somebody envisioned cyberspace. The concept was brought up in Vinge's description of immersive cyberspace in the novella called True Names in 1979. Vinge called cyberspace the other plane, Plane, and was accessed, and you got to the other plane by having these electrodes attached to your skull. So a very common trope, right? I mean, you see that in all kinds of sci-fi movies and things where you put some kind of headset on or whatever. And the people that were using it called themselves warlocks. It was great. But the warlocks end up accessing government databases and things like that. So it was a really early vision of the future, and it's very Philip K. Dick. The first time I ever read this, I was immediately thinking about Philip K. Dick, who was writing about this kind of stuff back in the 60s and 50s. But if you do want to read it, incidentally, True Names is available in an internet archive. It's open read. I guess it's public domain at this point. So if you haven't read it or you want to read it, there is a link in the article. I think I read it in like 1980. I probably should go read it again. It's been a while, but I did remember it immediately when they started talking about it. I really like Verner Vinge a lot because Verner Vinge often had a lot of computer science-y stuff and was real heavy into the computer science side of tech way back in the 70s and 80s and wrote lots of books and things about it. So if you want to read it, it's there. It's free. I did no paywall. You can just go read it. Seems safe. I pulled it up on my sandbox machine. Wasn't malware, wasn't ransomware, but I'll leave that to you to decide. So Reddit went public. The social media site IPO'd yesterday, and the IPO price was $34 a share. So that's the price you paid in advance of the IPO. So if you went and you registered and you wanted to buy some shares, but by market close yesterday, it closed at $50.44. So that's a pretty nice little profit there. Now, a lot of IPOs have restrictions on how long you have to hold it before you sell. So it remains to be seen if that was a good investment or not. Yeah, I mean, I remember the glory days of the late 90s. I bought shares of a company called Blue Martini Software for $2 a share and sold it for $20 a share. They actually didn't have any products or customers, but everybody loved a good IPO back in the 90s. Now, understand, I bought 10 shares or something because I don't have very much money. But, I think, I made enough to maybe buy a box of cigars. Seems like I bought a box of cigars with that money. Maybe some of you rich types should back me or, buy me, send me money. I can just go on there and start saying I'm super rich, but I need money. We've all heard that before. But Reddit has about 73 million daily visitors and uses the ticker RDDT. If you're interested, this is the first public offering of a social media company since Pinterest in 2019. Will it change Reddit to be controlled by the will of the collective shareholders instead of the will of the collective moderators? Probably, but that's showbiz. You want those fat stacks of cash. You got to pay for it. Yeah. Well, satellites gone up to the skies, things like that drive me out of my mind. I watched it for a little while. I love to watch things on TV, but mostly I love to watch Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaran.
Hey, it's me in like some sort of Riverside Technicolor or something like that. How's it going, Doug? Can you see me better today?
I can. You look like you're in natural light and in an all-natural environment with like plants and healthy air and all this kind of stuff. And
it's like last week. I think I looked better on Zoom than I did on or Teams or Zoom or the other way around.
I look a lot better in dark, shadowy places personally, but.
Oh, me too. Okay, let's get into it. Today's article comes from Wired. You guys over there are rocking it. Really good articles come out of there. And the article is Apple's iMessage encryption puts its security practices in the DOJ's crosshairs. Oh, so it does. So the US Department of Justice has filed an antitrust lawsuit against Apple, claiming that the company has tried to dominate the smartphone market and hurt customers along the way. Kind of sounds legit, right? The DOJ that Apple selectively embraces, so they argue that Apple selectively embraces privacy and security features in a way that hurt competition and users. Also sounds about right. It is stated in the article that Apple has been commended by privacy advocates over a decade for its choice in 2011 to end-to-end encrypt iMessage, protecting users' communications on the default texting app for its devices. It's like even so Apple can't access their messages, so we told anyway. I guess it's true. But also sounds like something Apple would say, right? It's further stated that this was years before WhatsApp enabled end-to-end encryption in 2016, and even before Signal, which is maybe the most private end-to-end encryption messaging platform today, according to some people. So Apple quietly pioneered that security feature, making it part of its core ecosystem. And we all love some privacy, especially in this business, right? So the DOJ's lawsuit alleges that Apple engages in monopolistic behaviors. Oh, no, they don't. By using its closed operating systems and app stores to prevent customers and consumers type people from accessing apps and services that could help them reduce their reliance on Apple products. Why would they do that? The DOJ's complaint also focuses on Apple's approach to security and privacy, arguing that it uses those principles as an excuse for its anti-competitive practices, yet jettisons them. Oh, yes, they do, apparently so, whenever they might hurt the bottom line. Totally made me smile. I don't know why. The DOJ faults Apple for decisions like its deal with Google to make Google's search engine the default on Apple products. More monopolies all over the place, rather than a more privacy preserving alternative. Makes sense. Or allowing data harvesting apps into its app store. Crazy. The DOJ's complaint argues that Apple uses security and privacy as an excuse for its anti-competitive practices, deploying them as an elastic shield to serve its financial interests. Also has rings of truth, right? Some Apple critics like Cory Doctorow have made this argument for years, stating that when an Android user is added to a chat, the conversation flips to SMS. We all know this. Apple's answer is that if you want real security, you should buy your friends' iPhones. I loved it. So funny. In a statement to Wired, Apple says it designs its products to work seamlessly together, protect people's privacy and security, and create a magical experience for users. I feel magic. And it adds that the DOJ lawsuit threatens who we are and the principles that set Apple products apart in the marketplace. The company also says it hasn't released an Android version of iMessage because it couldn't ensure that third parties would implement it in ways that met the company's standards. I actually feel some truth in this. Android is a bit like the Wild Wild West compared to the ecosystem of Apple, in my humble opinion. So anyway, they say if successful, the lawsuit would hinder our ability to create the kind of technology people expect from Apple, where hardware, software, and services intersect. The statement continues, it would also set a dangerous precedent, empowering government to take a heavy hand in designing people's technology. We believe this lawsuit is wrong on the facts and the law, and we will vigorously defend it against that. Apple sounding a bit like the EFF, although one has dollars in their eyes and one does a lot of good. You choose which one. Even as Apple has faced accusations of hoarding iMessage's security properties, it has continued to improve these features and said it will adopt the RCS standard to allow for improvements in messaging with Android users. Cryptographer Nadeem Kobayashi argues that this deflates any argument the DOJ might make that Apple has intentionally hoarded security features as a competitive advantage. Nadim says that the security gap is a byproduct of Apple's attempt to preserve the exclusivity of integrated social features while maintaining the product security. He argues that it's a societal question about the openness of communication platforms, and that people aware of iMessage's security advantages are also aware of other end-to-end encrypted messaging offices. However, Apple critics point out that iMessage is deeply integrated as a default messaging app on Apple devices. They are their devices after all, and thus will always be used more often than other options. CSIS's Chin Rothman suggests that comprehensive data privacy legislation might be a better approach than relying on technology giants like Apple to set the standards for privacy and security. So in conclusion, ultimately the question is whether we should rely on private companies to set the standards for privacy and security, or if there should be more government oversight and regulation in this area. Tell you what are your ideas? Reach out and let us know. Now back to Dr. Doug in the studio, who is all about the privacy and security, especially that time in the bar when I did that thing and he never told anyone. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, I might have been unconscious by then, but I do remember there was a thing. It was really sticky, but whatever. Thank you, Aaron. And finally, is the only way to stop a bad robot with a gun a good robot with a gun? Or maybe not even then? I'm not sure. But the U.S. military has been running exercises in California. This is called like a future exercise where they're looking at potential technologies. And they published all these photos of these, like, those terrifying Boston Robotics dogs that look like the metalhead dog in Black Mirror. Yeah, those things are frightening. Augmented reality headsets, drones, AI-driven vehicles, and an 8-wheeled all-electric robot vehicle that is armed to the teeth. I mean, I don't really know. I watched the video. I don't know what that very large weapon on the front of it is. Maybe it's an M60. I don't know. I'm sure that, many of you know exactly what it is and how it works and could disassemble it blindfolded in the dark. I'm not even kidding. But I mean, give it to a robot and what could go wrong, right? I mean, we're always worrying about AI going bad, and Congress has been wringing their hands all year long. And, oh, my God, think of the children and what will AI do to us next? But, hey, you know what? Let's fund a whole bunch of heavily armed auto-driving AI dogs and give them all a bunch of weapons. Or just put give your Tesla an HK-40 caliber and let's party. I mean, I don't know. I love this stuff. And I would be happy to have one of those dogs running around my property. And a dog with a flamethrower, oh my. Or a dog with a flamethrower with bees in its mouth. Now, that would be cool, right? I mean, the next time that guy comes around trying to sell me a vacuum cleaner, we're really going to party. Let me tell you, I'll have TikToks of that if it's not banned in the meantime. But anyway, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, there's a really fun video in the link if you want to watch it. And I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords, our Father who art in protected memory, hallowed be that. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Anyway, that is the news from the Edgewater Inn in Seattle. Thank you, Aaron. And we will see you next time on the Security